Making a Murderer is a Netflix true crime documentary series that recounts the mistaken conviction of Stephen Avery, a man from Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, who was sentenced to 18 years for the sexual assault and attempted murder of Penny Bjornsson. Later, he was accused and convicted of murdering Teresa Halbach in 2005. The linked narrative is that of Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey, who was charged and convicted of being an accessory to the murder of Halbach. The series recounts Avery's arrest and conviction in 1985, his exoneration and release in 2003, the civil suit he filed against Manitowoc County, his 2005 arrest, and his subsequent trial and conviction in 2007 for Halbach's murder. It also depicts Dassey's arrest, prosecution, and conviction, emphasizing the allegations of coercion and attorney incompetence in his trial. Making a Murderer was widely viewed and has sparked significant debate since its broadcast. 2023 seems to be the year that the debate on Avery's conviction gets reignited. Making a Murderer was criticized by the media, government officials, and the general public for allegedly being biased towards Stephen Avery, re-victimizing Teresa Halbach and her family, and incriminating law enforcement professionals. Convicting a Murderer, the rebuttal docuseries to Netflix's popular true crime series, has recently found a home on Daily Wire Plus. The 10-part series, which has been in development for 6 years, will premiere in the summer of 2023, with Candace Owens narrating and fronting the project. According to the producers, Convicting a Murderer will include exclusive interviews with subjects not featured on the Netflix series, such as law enforcement officers, family members, and fans-turned-investigators, as well as unedited sequences and additional evidence. Candace Owens commented on the series by saying, "I have an interest in the media's ability to transform villains into heroes via selective reporting. An argument can be made that Netflix made millions by transforming an irrevocably evil man, Stephen Avery, into a sympathetic character. In this video, Bad Things will weigh in on this highly contentious case by showing you where both sides went wrong and what most likely happened to Teresa Halbach. Evidence of Avery's guilt would have been a home run in a perfect world, but due to the bungling of the various law enforcement agencies during the investigation, an ominous cloud of doubt hangs over his complicity in the death of Halbach. The investigators' handling of the case was so inept that conspiracy was allowed to creep in and muddy the waters of the case. The conspiracy aspect is due to Avery's civil suit against Manitowoc County, its former sheriff Thomas Kotsurek, and its former district attorney Dennis Vogel, with Avery seeking $36 million in damages for his unlawful conviction. Avery, his defense team, and countless amateur crime investigators have cited the civil suit as a pretext for framing Avery for the embarrassment caused by his wrongful conviction. Just how bad was the investigation that sowed the seeds of doubt and conspiracy? Very bad. These are just some of the mistakes or contradictions made by law enforcement in the investigation. Dean Strang of Avery's lawyers recalled that one of the investigators involved in discovering DNA under the hood of Halbach's car acknowledged not changing gloves after handling evidence inside her vehicle. The hood latch sample was a swab obtained from Halbach's Toyota RAV4 hood latch. Stephen Avery's DNA was detected on the specimen upon examination. Strang added that Manitowoc County Coroner Deborah Kakach would testify that Calumet County authorities walled her off entirely from the crime scene. According to state law, she should have been allowed to investigate early allegations of potential human remains discovered outside Avery's trailer. Strang also said that the Manitowoc County Executive and the county's chief counsel had urged the coroner not to investigate the case. A forensic anthropologist testified on behalf of the defense that an open fire could not have generated enough heat to burn Halbach's body and obliterate her bones, as claimed. Sherry Culhane was involved in the 1985 rape trial of Avery and erroneously testified that one of Avery's hairs were discovered on the victim's clothing. Avery's attorneys also claim that Culhane delayed the processing of the DNA test that proved Stephen's innocence in the 1985 rape. Culhane testified that Hallback's DNA was on the bullet, but she tainted her control sample and used the entire sample, leaving nothing for the defense to analyze. William Newhouse, a Wisconsin State Crime Lab firearms expert, said that he could not connect the bullet discovered in a crevice in Avery's garage to the .22 caliber rifle seized from his bedroom. He could only affirm that it was unquestionably a .22 caliber bullet. There was no DNA on the gun, no blood blowback from shooting someone at such close range, and no blood mist or splatter in the garage. Strang stated that there were small traces of deer blood all over Avery's garage, refuting the hypothesis that they could have scrubbed all the blood evidence out of the garage, as there would not have been any deer blood if they had done so. These are just some of the blunders made by the blundering investigators. Questioning the investigators' ethics and procedures would not stop there. The interrogation of Brendan Dassey would put another black stain on their methods. Brendan Dassey was only 16 years old when he confessed to helping his uncle in the rape, murder and dismemberment of Hallback. But was this confession coerced or coached by the interrogators? Brendan Dassey was born in Manitowoc County on October 19, 1989, to Barbara and Peter Dassey. Brendan and his family lived in a trailer on the 40-acre property of Avery Salvage. In the autumn of 2005, 16-year-old Dassey was a sophomore at Mishicot High School. Despite Dassey's intense desire to attend class, he failed academically. Dassey was enrolled in special education courses and was failing 3 of them. In 1996, he began receiving special education services after cognitive testing revealed that he had a full-scale IQ of 74, a verbal IQ of 65, and a performance IQ of 87.25. In 2002, the Mishicot School District school psychologist Chris Schonenberger Gross assessed Dassey's cognitive abilities and placed him in the borderline to below average range. She indicated that he has been diagnosed with a speech and language impairment and has difficulty articulating himself, as well as understanding some facets of language. It is against that backdrop that Brendan was first questioned by law enforcement on November 6, 2005. On November 6, 2005, law enforcement was already in the control of Avery Salvage as they began their second day of scouring the expansive property. Around 11:55 a.m., detectives from Marinette County saw 2 young men driving Stephen Avery's car and stopped them. After identifying the car's occupants as Brian and Brendan Dassey, nephews of Stephen, the detectives seized the vehicle and asked to speak to the brothers separately. This roadside conversation marked the beginning of Brendan's lengthy interrogation history, an ordeal that would imprison him for the rest of his life. Making a Murderer examines only the March 1st confession. It neither addresses nor even mentions any other interrogations of Dassey. Dassey's interactions with law enforcement during these earlier interrogations were crucial to his March 1st confession. Detectives Anthony J. O'Neill and Todd Baldwin began questioning Dassey in their squad car. O'Neill and Baldwin took turns interrogating Dassey for approximately 45 minutes. During the first 20 minutes of their interaction with Dassey, the detectives were formal but non-confrontational. Dassey's narrative was straightforward. He claims he never saw Hallback on the afternoon of October 31st, the day she visited Avery when he was dropped off at home by the school bus. At approximately 20 minutes into the interrogation, however, O'Neill abruptly transforms the interview into an interrogation. Baldwin: "Yeah, you remember that girl taking that picture. You're getting off the bus. It's a beautiful day, it's daylight and everybody sees her. You do too. Do you remember seeing that girl standing there taking a picture?" Dassey: "Maybe. I don't know. Don't remember." Baldwin: "Brendan, come on." O'Neill: "You do know, don't you, Brendan? You're not going to disappoint any of us. Think about that girl. Was that girl standing there taking a picture that day?" Dassey: "Maybe." O'Neill: It's either a yes or no. I mean, I'm not putting nothing in your mind. You tell me if you remember that girl standing there taking pictures." Dassey: "No reply." O'Neill: "Was she? Huh? Why won't you tell me? Dassey: I was just trying to think if I saw her. O'Neill: well, did you see her standing there taking a picture? Dassey: yeah. O'Neill: why didn't you tell me that? You scared? Dassey: no reply. O'Neill: huh? Dassey: yeah. O'Neill's statement, "I mean, I'm not putting nothing in your mind," is ironic, as this is precisely what he and later interrogators would do. This is especially evident in the February 27, 2006 schoolhouse interrogation. Dassey's first official interrogation is very different from the one in the series. Jim Clemente, an American author, former New York State prosecutor, former FBI profiler, podcast co-host and creator of the show Real Crime Profile, and writer-producer on CBS's Criminal Minds, believes that this interrogation and Dassey's account in it is possibly the most accurate confession as to Dassey's involvement in the murder. On Monday, February 27, 2006, Detective Weigart and Tom Fassbender, a special agent with the Special Assignments Bureau of the Department of Justice Division of Criminal Investigation, hauled Dassey out of class at Mishicot High School to interrogate him. The interrogation occurred in a school conference room without an attorney or guardian. The following is a brief synopsis of the first interview with Dassey written by Weigart. Brendan stated that on Halloween, 10/31/05, he had gotten off the bus at 3:45 p.m. and had seen her Jeep down at Stephen's house. Brendan stated that he had gone into his house and played PlayStation for 2 or 3 hours. Brendan stated he then ate, and at approximately 8 p.m. he received a phone call from Stephen. Stephen had asked Brendan if he wanted to come over and have a fire, and Brendan stated he did. Brendan stated Stephen told him to bring the golf cart, which he stated he did. According to Brendan, they went driving around the yard to pick up several items. Brendan stated they dropped off the car seat by the fire and then went to get some wood and an old cabinet, and then went back to the fire to throw the seat on the fire. Brendan stated they then waited for the fire to go down and threw wood and an old cabinet on the fire. Brendan stated at that time he saw the toes before they put the wood and the cabinet on the fire. Brendan states Stephen saw him and that Stephen realized he had seen the toes, and Stephen told Brendan not to say anything. According to Brendan, Stephen told him that he, meaning Stephen, had stabbed her, meaning Teresa, in the stomach in the pit, and that he took the knife and put it under the seat of her Jeep. We asked Brendan why Stephen had done this, to which Brendan stated Stephen had said that he was angry. Brendan also told us that Stephen told him that Stephen had used a rope to tie her up in the Jeep. Brendan stated that Stephen had threatened him. Brendan also told us that he saw the fingers, the belly and the forehead of Teresa in the fire. Brendan stated he believed that the body was all together and was underneath some tires and branches. Stephen had told Brendan that he hid the vehicle in the pit back in the tree area and put some tree branches on the top of it, and put the car hood on the top of it. Brendan also told us that Stephen had gone into the garage and had taken some clothes and put them in the fire. Brendan described the clothes as a blue shirt and some pants. Brendan stated there was blood on the shirt and there was a hole in the stomach area. Brendan stated Stephen had told Brendan that it was Teresa's shirt. Brendan stated to us that when they were up north at the cabin, Stephen told Brendan that he was going to get a car and try to get it as far away as he could. At no point during this first interrogation did Dassey admit to being involved in the murder. When asked if he had helped kill Holbach, Dassey was more responsive than any other time during the interrogation. Weigart: I have to ask you another difficult question. It's very important that you be honest with me, okay? Did you have anything to do with the death of Teresa Holbach? Brendan: no. Weigart: tell me who did. Brendan: Steve. Weigart: and Stephen did it by how again? Tell me that again. Brendan: that he stabbed her. Fassbender: okay. Had he told you that, yes or no? Brendan: yes. Fassbender: did he say he had had a gun with at all? Weigart: did you ask him about a gun? Weigart: and he told you that he did this in her truck? Brendan: yeah. Weigart: And he tied her up first. Brendan, yes. Weigert, yes. Brendan, yes. Dassey's later confessions are believed to have been coerced, and Dassey had been clinically evaluated as being highly suggestible, which makes him a suspect more compliant and can ultimately lead to improper interrogation outcomes, such as false confessions. At most, Brendan Dassey is an accessory to the mutilation of a corpse and obstruction of justice in the murder of Hallback. Owen's statement, transforming an irrevocably evil man, Stephen Avery, into a sympathetic character, may be precisely what the Making a Murder series did by looking at the evidence with biased tunnel vision. With Avery behind bars and unlikely to be released anytime soon, accusations against him have surfaced that do not put him in a good light, but paint a picture of a violent, abusive sex offender capable of murder. Although these accusations don't prove he killed Hallback, they show his lack of empathy and deep-seated hate of women. Here are just some instances where Avery's character can be determined. In March 1981, at the age of 18, Avery was convicted of burglarizing a bar with a friend. He was released on probation and ordered to pay restitution after serving 10 months of a 2-year sentence in the Manitowoc County Jail. On July 24, 1982, approximately 3 weeks after turning 20, Avery wed single mother Laurie Matheson. They had 4 children as a couple, and Laurie's son, Jason Matheson, stated that the relationship was hostile and abusive. Matheson was repeatedly assaulted with punches, hits, and strangulation. Matheson believes that her son Jason was also a victim of Avery's physical violence. In one instance, Jason and Avery spent time working on cars together. Jason returned with 2 missing teeth. According to Avery, this was caused by an accident. Matheson believes Avery punched Jason after Jason outsmarted Avery. Avery acknowledged in the 1990s that he had abused Matheson. A few months after his release in 1982, when he was 20 years old, 2 men confessed that, at Avery's suggestion, they threw his cat in a bonfire and then watched it burn until it died, after Avery poured gasoline and oil on it. Avery was convicted of animal abuse and sentenced to prison until August 1983. Avery purportedly raped his babysitter Jean in 1982 or 1983. Avery approached Jean as she relaxed on a couch and began to touch her. Avery placed his hand over Jean's mouth and warned her, "If you yell or scream, there will be trouble." Jean told family members about the incident, but did not report it to the police. Jean gave the prosecution witness testimony regarding the Hallback homicide and said she would provide evidence against Avery at trial. On January 3, 1985, Avery drove his cousin's vehicle off the road. Avery aimed a loaded gun at her after she pulled over. Avery was furious that she had spread false allegations about him masturbating on the front lawn, which, according to him, was not the case. Avery insisted that the firearm was not loaded and that he only tried to prevent her from spreading lies about him. He was given a 6-year sentence for endangering safety while displaying a depraved mind and gun possession. Avery sent numerous letters to his wife Laurie between 1985 and 1993, while unjustly incarcerated for the rape and attempted murder of Penny Beardson. Several of these letters contained death threats. Avery wrote in large letters in a single letter, "I will get you when I'm out." In a second written note, he refers to Matheson as his honey before threatening to kill her multiple times. Avery penned in the letter, "I will kill you, ha ha ha," and "I'll use the letters and pictures against you." During the same time period, one of Stephen's letters was addressed to his children. In the letter, he threatened to murder their mother. Avery was released from prison on September 11, 2003, after DNA evidence cleared him of sexually assaulting Beardson. He then met Jody Stokowski, who stayed in a trailer on Avery's auto salvage property next to Stephen's sister Barb's house. Avery and Stokowski started dating and eventually became engaged. Stokowski appears in the documentary as one of Avery's most ardent supporters. But she later claimed that she lied in the footage and that Avery coerced her into defending him. "He told me how to act," she said. "I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to get hurt." Stokowski described an instance in which Avery assaulted and strangled her. In September of 2004, she reported that Avery pushed her to the ground, struck her and threatened to murder her, according to police records. She then said that he strangled her until she lost consciousness. She told police that Avery was dragging her to his car when she awoke. A police officer eventually stopped them, and Avery was hauled into custody. Additionally, police records document a second incident in which Stokowski claimed Avery verbally threatened her while serving a sentence for drunken driving while she was on work release privilege. Stokowski said she is speaking out because she wants people to know the truth. "He is not innocent," she declared. "He would constantly beat me, punch me, and throw me against a wall." Stokowski would say, "He's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde." Tammy, a friend of Stokowski, saw Stephen grasping the breasts of two 13 or 14-year-old neighbor girls during the summer of 2004. Stephen said to Tammy, "If you need a piece, you need a piece." During the summer of 2004, Avery allegedly sexually assaulted Marie, a teenage relative. Marie claimed that Stephen once placed his hands over her mouth and had sexual relations with her. Avery threatened to murder her and harm her family if she spoke out about the incident. While Avery denied he had assaulted Marie, he admitted they had consensual intercourse. This wouldn't be the only family member that accused him of sexually assaulting them. This may surprise many, but Brendan Dassey accused Avery of molesting him and his brothers. Brendan told his mother in a recorded prison phone conversation not entirely included in the documentary series that he had helped Avery, that Stephen had forced him to do it, and that Stephen had previously inappropriately touched him and others. Part of the conversation goes as follows. "Mom, did he make you do this?" Brendan, "Yeah." "Mom, then why didn't you tell him that?" Brendan, "Tell him what?" "Mom, that Stephen made you do it. You know he made you do a lot of things." Brendan, "Yeah, I told them that. I even told them about Stephen touching me and that." "Mom, what do you mean touching you?" Brendan, "He would grab me somewhere where I was uncomfortable." "Mom, Brendan, I am your mother." Brendan, "Yeah." "Mom, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you tell me? Was this all before this happened?" Brendan, "What do you mean?" "Mom, all before this happened. Did he touch you before all this stuff happened to you?" Brendan, "Yeah." "Mom, why didn't you come to me? Because then he would have been gone then, and this wouldn't have happened." Brendan, "Yeah." One of the most chilling allegations about Avery came from a prison inmate. Although this is hearsay and not evidence, if true, it points to intent and some foreshadowing of Avery's future. While in prison on the previous 1985 case, Avery told another inmate of his intent to build a torture chamber so he could rape, torture, and kill young women when he was released. Prosecutor Kratz would tell a news outlet. He even drew a diagram. Another inmate was told by Avery that the way to get rid of a body is to burn it. Heat destroys DNA. Later, Hallback's skeletal remains were discovered in a fire pit on Avery's property. So, what most likely happened in the Making a Murderer case? No matter which side you were on, some evidence in the case screams of Avery's guilt. Avery called Auto Trader to specifically request Hallback the day she died. Auto Trader receptionist Dawn Pliska testified that Avery contacted her on October 31, 2005, to request a photographer who had been out to the property previously. In addition, magazine operations superintendent Angela Schuster testified that Hallback visited the Avery compound 6 times between June and Halloween to take photographs. Pliska was not allowed to testify during the trial about one of Hallback's earlier encounters with Avery. "She had stated to me that he had come out in a towel," Pliska said as the jury was outside the courtroom. "I just said, 'Really?' and she replied, 'Yeah,' while laughing and saying, 'Ew.'" The judge refused to allow the jury to hear the testimony because the date was unclear and few details about the alleged encounter were known. The Star 67 calls. According to phone records, on October 31st, Avery made 3 calls to Teresa's mobile phone. The contacts occurred at 2:24 and 2:35. Avery used the *67 feature so that Teresa was unaware that he was calling before she arrived. Then at 4:35 p.m., one final call is made without the *67 feature. Avery initially believed he could say that she did not show up, which was his initial defense, so he tried to set up the alibi call after she had already been there, hence the 4:35 call. Obviously, she will never respond, so he does not need the *67 feature for this final call. Avery used a fake name. To trick Hallback into returning, Avery explicitly requested that same girl who was here last time when he booked the appointment and used his sister's name, Barb Janda, as a contact. The contents of Hallback's purse were found in a barrel close to Avery's property. Kratz stated during an interview that Teresa's phone, camera, and other contents of her purse were found 20 feet from Avery's door, burned in his barrel. 2 people saw him putting that stuff in there. This isn't contested. It was all presented as evidence at the jury trial, and the documentary people don't tell you that. Teresa's tooth, a rivet from her jeans, and more were found in Avery's fire pit. Teresa's tooth identified through dental records, a rivet from the Dassey Fuentes denim she wore that day, and the tools used by Avery to cut up her bones were also discovered in the fire pit. 5 of the 6 rivets of the jeans were recovered behind Stephen's garage, where a fire had occurred. The bone area yielded tooth number 31, one of Teresa's rear teeth on the left side of her jaw. Hallback's bones were intertwined with the tires Avery threw on the fire to burn, as Dassey described. Her bones in the fire pit were intertwined with the steel belts left over from the car tires Avery threw on the fire to burn, as described by Dassey, Kratz would say. DNA on the RAV4. Hallback's RAV4 was discovered hidden away in Avery's family's salvage yard, containing bloodstains that were ultimately determined to have originated from Avery through DNA testing. His defense team argued persuasively that the blood could have been tampered with, as it was obtained from a sample the county had in storage that had been tampered with. However, the second location where Avery's DNA was discovered, on the underside of the bonnet of Hallback's vehicle, was never discussed in Making a Murderer. If you believe that Manitowoc County authorities planted blood in Hallback's vehicle and the key to her car in Avery's bedroom, it is not difficult to explain away this evidence. Kratz, however, has asserted publicly that the DNA originated from Avery's perspiration and has emphasized the absurdity of law enforcement using a sweat sample to frame Avery. This also applies to the car key. Sherry Culhane examined the car key after its discovery. Culhane discovered a DNA profile belonging to Avery on the key. She found no other DNA profile on the key. Did Avery commit premeditated murder, or as Jim Clemente has hypothesized, Avery tried to come onto Hallback, she rejected him, and he forced himself upon her, eventually killing her? Was there a massive conspiracy involving multiple law enforcement agencies, colluding and planting evidence at the same time Hallback visited Avery's yard and disappeared? A million questions could be asked about this case, and each would have multiple answers, depending on which way you lean. What is certain is that Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey won't be let free anytime soon, and that convicting a murderer is about to throw gasoline on this already fiery case. If you love our content and want to support the channel, feel free to check our web shop where you can find exclusive true crime merch brought to you by Bad Things.